Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another wonderful, fun-filled episode. Alright, so they're not so wonderful and they're not so fun-filled. But anyway, welcome back. This is your host, Mr. Wrench. We are working on the 2002 Jeep Grand Cherokee today with the 4.7 V8. We are going to be dropping the fuel tank and pulling the fuel pump out, hopefully. But the first thing I have to do is remove this trailer hitch. I'm not going to be putting it back on because this doesn't do any towing, but it is just completely rusted, and it actually leaves like these rusty stains on my driveway. So I'm just going to take it off. I'll store it just in case, but got to take it off. So basically that's pretty simple. It's held on with these, let's see, 1, 2, 3 large bolts, 3 on each side, and then hopefully it'll just drop out. Hopefully those bolts aren't rusted on there too bad. Alright, so let me get to work and I'll be back. So it's about 2 hours later, and I just got the trailer hitch off the car, unbolted. This bolt and this bolt were just absolutely fused on there. It wouldn't come out. What a nightmare. Plus they were on an angle. Well, the bolt was like hidden under the bumper cover over here, so the ratchet, the extensions and the ratchet, anything I tried, it was just too much on an angle. But I got it. Alright, so now we're going to undo these clips, and then we are going to drop the cover. This is not the gas tank, this is a protective cover, which, you know, encases the gas tank. Let's see. You see those 2 bolts right there? 1, 2. And I got these out. And alright, I'll get back to you guys. These were 3/4 inch bolts. Alright, let me get back to it. I'll be back. So I started working on the car yesterday, and as I was doing so, the battery in the cell phone died. So I just proceeded ahead with the work, but then I ran into a snag, so here it is the next day. So I started disconnecting everything, and of course the last bolt I'm trying to take out is stripped, completely stripped. Where is it? Right there. And it's in a tight spot, can't really get vice grips in there. So I'm dealing with that right now. But it's pretty easy, and normally I show step by step, but because the cell phone battery died, I couldn't. Basically, I started off, you have these plastic clips. You had 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just take a screwdriver, you jam it in between, pull down, and then pull the tab out. That was step 1. Then you had these larger bolts. Some of mine were 3/4 and the others were, I think, like 21 millimeter, if I remember correctly. So those go on the outer perimeter of this steel case that encases the fuel tank. This is the fuel tank right here, this plastic thing. This is a protective casing. So you disconnect the larger bolts from the outer perimeter. You take out these clips. You had 1 bolt here. It's for a brace. So you had 1 nut here, so you undo this nut. And then you had these smaller nuts on the side, just 2 on this side, right there, 1, 2. And of course, the last one I was taking out was stripped. So that's what I'm dealing with right now. And then after that, I should be able to lower it. I have my sliding center jack supporting the gas tank. And so right now I just got to work on that stripped nut. So Should take me about, what, 3 hours, and for you guys, it only take like 3 seconds. All right, I'll be back. Okay, welcome back. So the gas tank is ready to be lowered now. Instead of dealing with that stripped nut right there, I disconnect those two nuts. Basically, these two nuts and bolts secure a heat shield which protects the gas tank from the tailpipe. So I disconnected the shield. I don't know if you could see it. I disconnected the shield back there from the chassis. So as I lower the tank, the shield will just stay attached and come down with it. So that's basically how I overcame that obstacle. Now let's just go under the car for a second. I don't want to completely lower the tank just yet. There is an electrical wire here, so just pull this connector out, and then you have this tab holding some fuel lines. So just got to push this in to release it so I don't drag the fuel lines down when I lower the tank. And then let's go underneath the car. There's your fuel filter, fuel pressure regulator, which I had changed in the past. As you can see, those two lines connect to the tank down there somewhere. So as I drop the tank, I don't want to pull those lines down and damage them from the fuel pressure regulator. So I'm going to undo the two bolts that hold the fuel pressure regulator and drop that too. I will leave all the lines attached, and I will then lower the tank. So I just got to undo that one clip. As you can see, that clip holds that device there in the center of the screen. I don't even know what that is. So undo that clip, and then take off these two bolts that hold the fuel pressure regulator, and then I could lower the fuel tank down. So let me get to it and I'll be back. Okay, so I got the two bolts out that hold the fuel pressure regulator in / fuel filter. It's two 10 millimeters. I believe the gas tank is ready to come down, but I just realized that if you see these two lines here, they're held in with a little clip. See that black clip? And you have to go onto the outside of the case here. And yeah, right up there. I didn't see that. So you're just going to squeeze the two ends with the needle nose pliers and push it out. And then the fuel tank should be ready to be lowered. And again, I'm not a professional mechanic. I'm just an average Joe trying to save a buck, and I'm trying to do this myself in my garage. So forgive me if I don't mention all of the steps in order and I kind of backtrack. For example, how I didn't realize that there was a little black clip back there. So I'm doing my best. I'm just sharing my experience with you guys in case you guys need a reference. All right, so let me see if this thing will come down and I'll be back. Okay, so I started to lower the tank and I wanted to check out these three lines that run up towards the charcoal canister. Now this one is your fill line. This is where you put gas. And then you have these two here. These two have plenty of slack, so lowering the tank won't affect them. This one really doesn't have any slack, so I'm going to disconnect it from right here. It's held on with this clamp, with this worm gear clamp. But it's so dry rot, it's going to probably be very difficult to get off. And then the tank should be ready to lower. So these two are not an issue. They got plenty of slack. This one probably should lower it. Probably should disconnect it. Or maybe there's enough room to tilt the tank. Now, I'm just going to disconnect it for now. And then I'll probably wind up disconnecting these two once the tank is lower. So I can pull the tank out and then work on removing the fuel pump, which is back there somewhere. Right back there. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's out. So prior to dropping it, I disconnected the fuel fill tube. It came off surprisingly easy. I unplugged this gray little canister. It's probably some type of filter for a vent line. That's my guess. Then I pulled off this one. Then you have the one electrical connection running to the fuel pump. I undid that. And then those two lines go to the fuel pressure regulator slash fuel filter. I disconnected that. Then I completely lowered it and dragged it out here. Now the fuel pump is down in there. But you don't want to just go and undo this, because look at all that sand. 16 years worth of sand and debris. So you don't want to open this and take the risk of this going down into the tank. Just going to create more havoc, so you're just going to have to clean it. So to avoid that, I'm going to take this outside. I'm going to put it on these dollies, take it outside, and hose it down. And I just covered all of the lines and all of the openings, so no water gets in there. Just, so it's less work that I don't have to clean it out. I'm interested to see how the inside of this fuel tank looks. So hopefully it's not too bad. I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm going to take it outside, get rid of all this debris, and then we will work on removing the fuel pump. Alright, I'll be back. Okay, so I took it outside and I just hosed off all the debris. It's nice and clean in there. And then I took my air gun and blew off as much water as possible. So now I'm going to disconnect these two lines. And I assume you just squeeze the clips, push them, pinch this blue clip here and push it forward, and then this one maybe does the same. Then we have to turn this outer ring somehow. They do have a special tool for that, but I don't have it. So I will figure out how to do this. So disconnect these two, take this outer ring off counterclockwise, and then the fuel pump should be ready to pull out. Alright, let me get to it and I'll be back. Okay, so I got those two lines off. There they are. And I started to loosen this, and how am I doing that? I just took a piece of wood, put it against one of those notches, and I hit the other end with a mallet, and it's coming off surprisingly pretty easy. Alright, I'll be back. And if you notice, see this arrow? This arrow is pointing over here. So I don't know exactly why, but I'm sure that's the orientation it has to be put back in. And obviously you're going to want these two lines facing that way to this groove here. So take note of that. Alright, I'll be back. Okay, so we got the fuel pump out. There it is. Be mindful of the float here as you're maneuvering it out. And this unit still had maybe like 8 ounces of fuel in it. So I kept it over here and I was maneuvering it like this to dump all the fuel there so it didn't spill everywhere else. On the inside of the fuel tank, it's got some debris. You can see back there's like sand, a few pieces of plastic. I'm going to try to get all this gas out so I can get all this debris out. See, that's some sand here too. And first of all, I ran the car for quite some time with the check engine with the low gas light on. When you do this job, you want to do this with as little fuel in the tank as possible. So I've got these two siphons. One's a pump, the other one's got like a ball there, and you shake it. Honestly, that damn thing has never worked. So I'm going to try it, try to get that fuel out, just so I could have a clean fuel in there when I put the new fuel pump in. I want to get all that sand out. Alright, I'll be back. Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So there's the fuel pump. It's not the actual fuel pump, it's the whole assembly. So normally what I do is I just go to like Chrysler Mopar or whatever kind of car I'm working on, General Motors, Ford, and I just get an original fuel pump. I don't mess around with these things. But for this particular vehicle, new from Mopar, this costs $350, $375. Yeah, I'm not doing that. This car is 16 years old, has 200, almost 250,000 miles. So I was on Amazon and you could buy these assemblies, Chinese made, $60, $75, $85, $90. However, you should always read the comments what the people write below. And so many people on those Chinese-made fuel pumps, so many people write that once they install it, their fuel gauge no longer works. I'm not going to go through all this trouble and have to do this job again because I went and bought a cheap Chinese-made fuel pump. So I was looking around trying to figure out what my options are, and I came across a company, and they say that this particular AC Delco fuel pump, which only costs like 40 bucks for this kit, you get the fuel pump, these instructions, wiring harness, and some extra parts. So this was $45 versus $350. Or versus going with a cheap Chinese one, cost 60, 70, 80, 90 bucks. And I don't want to do that because I don't want to risk having to do this job again. So that's why I'm not going with one of those cheap Chinese ones. I don't want to pay $350 for an original. So I think this was my next best option. However, I'm not even sure if this is going to work. AC Delco doesn't particularly make a fuel pump for this car, and I even called them. However, this company says that they've been doing this for 30 years and they can cross-reference part numbers, and they've sold thousands of these, and this will work. So I'm going to disassemble this and see how this goes. Now, I've never taken one of these apart, so this is a new experience for me. Basically, you got to separate this hat from the base. Looks like, and it's got like these clips under here. So you got to lift up on these tabs and pull them out. However, you got 3 of them, so it's going to be a little tricky. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So wish me luck. I'm not completely sold on this, so I hope I can get this to work. I really don't want to spend that much money. So let's see if this will work. All right, let me get to it and I'll be back.